This is the home tasks that I completed for senior analytics engineering role for fintech company. They gave me like 3 tasks that I submitted, and it seems like I did it quite well because I passed this round, but it's not ideal as well. I think there are some areas to improvement, and we will discuss it today as well. The first task was to build the DBT project from scratch to allow business stakeholders to answer their own questions. They provided some data. They provided the data for 3 tables. And the task was to build DBT models. So our business stakeholders could use it as a self-serve and be able to self-serve means that they can query by their own and find the questions by their own without any help. And they should be able to answer the following questions. We are working in a fintech company, and they launched recently a new premium subscription product. They provide some accounting and invoicing, so some financial services to small businesses in US and Canada. The premium is like one of the major priority for the company. So the question they would like to answer are, how many active subscriptions do we have at any historical day? How frequently are premium subscribers churning or leaving the product? What portion of revenue is coming from each specific purchase method at any given point of time? And visualize the revenue by months broken by purchase method. So revenue by months. And there are some like recommendations.
This subscription that they are doing, is it that the clients that they serve, the clients are on subscriptions?
Yes, so they have subscription-based model. For example, if you have a small business and you want to do some finance operations, so you want to pay, for example, salary, and you want to do some accounting, right? And we have a software that we sell to you, and you pay on a monthly basis. And we have different subscription plans, some basic, and one of them they're premium. So you pay a certain amount of money every month for us, and we give you access to our software.
It makes sense.
They just provided the raw data. We will take a look at it a little bit later. And I need to, they don't have any DBT models yet, so I need to build it from scratch. And I need to add all the DBT sources, models, and tests. Also, because the company uses a kimball approach or dimensional modeling approach, it's recommended to use data modeling approach. Kimball, there are several most popular data modeling techniques, how you can model your data and what tables could you have. One of them is kimball or dimensional models. One of the most common example is, for example, you have sales and you have a fact table with actual sales day by day. In this table, all information about the sales. And you have dimension tables. In dimension tables, they are like catalogs. We have dimension table about our customers, where we have additional information about customers, their name, their address, some payment information. Also, we have dimensional table about the product with all the fields, with the description of the product. The same we have about our own employees. So we have one central table, facts table, and we have a lot of dimensional tables that we can join to the fact table to get additional information. They asked to use this approach, kimball approach, in our project. With this one, we should be able to answer at least these questions, and that's it. And there are some additional tasks, and after creating the DBT model, I should be able to explain how to validate the output, how to validate that the results we got is correct and has a good quality of data. And I should explain how I would teach the product team how to use my data. Let's start with analyzing what data have they sent to us. They send us like 3 main tables with the descriptions and with some dummy data, so with some sample data that I loaded to the database. There are 3 tables, and the first table is business. So here we have all information about these small businesses that bought our product. We have ID of these businesses. We have like create date, where the business country. For country, we have only US and Canada. Organizational type, type, organizational structure, type of business, and some subtype. Let's check also. I copied this data to locally. We can now check how it looks like. So I opened my VS Code where I developed my DBT project, and I have this raw data. So we have ID, create date, just to date, country, Canada, US, organizational types, legal organization. It's like corporation or limited partnerships or sole. It's just a type of how legally a company is created. Type, it's more like a type of business. Is it like retailer or it's like service provider or it's real estate? More like about in what industry the business is operated. And subtype, I think it's just subtype of the main type. To make it short, in this information we have information about just about business. Now, what's your question?
Are you describing these data points by yourself, or you were given a data dictionary?
Yeah, so they gave me this one. They gave me these descriptions. First, I read this description to understand it. Then I opened this C3 file that they sent me, and I checked what format do they have here, and yeah, to understand better what like type is. So I used their dictionary that they sent to me, and then I additionally double checked it in raw file.
Okay, makes sense.
Next one is subscription items. Subscription item is more like about what types of subscription do they have, or subscription plans. They have ID of this subscription plan. Then I think they have a name of it. Yeah, we will check it. Billing period. Small business can choose, will it pay monthly, month by month, or they will pay for the whole year. Just two options, how you can pay, and the price for each subscription plan. Now let's check how it looks like. It's just information about subscription plans, ID. It's only about premium plans, billing period, months or year, and the price for each subscription. Quite simple data. And the last table is subscriptions. It's detailed information about individual subscriptions. So we have ID of each individual subscription, business ID. Business ID, I think we will be able to use to map with business table. Yeah, when the subscription was created, when the subscription term was started or it was ended. Cancellation, if some of the subscription will be canceled, we have a date when it will be canceled, or if the customer already canceled subscription, we see the date. We have a channel from which subscription was purchased, so it's like App Store or Google Play. Status of subscription, is it active or canceled? Country, exchange rate, because we have currency in Canadian and US dollars. We have exchange rate for Canadian dollars because we want to see all information in one currency, and it's US dollars. And subscription plan ID, and with this subscription plan we can join our subscription items by ID. It looks like it's ID of the individual subscription, business ID that we can join to our business table, when it was created, some dates when it started and ended, the cancellation when planned, and the real cancellation. Channel, country, Canadian or US. Status, is it active? I think there are some. Cancel, and exchange rate and subscription plan. So we have three tables: information about business, information about subscription plans, information about just individual subscription that customers bought. Let's jump in and check my solution.
Does it make sense that the created that date is not equal to subscription start date? Is it like when you create your account or maybe you made a subscription, they need to manually confirm your subscription before it starts reading?
Yeah, I think they could be different. Let's check. Here I just checked the description about the created ad. This is the date and time when subscription was created. The new subscription becomes active upon creation. When we create subscription, it means that it immediately made so until canceled.
Your current term.
Current term is something else.
What you would expect would be that for every customer's first subscription, their created at should be equal to the current time start?
I don't think they should be equal. And I can explain, in some cases they're equal, in some others they are not, and I can explain you why. So created is just, let's assume that we created a subscription. That means that we started our plan with this company. And current term start, it's about term start. What does it mean, term? For example, we pay every year, right? And,
Okay.
and we pay once a year. So we paid, for example, okay, we started last year and we paid for the last year. And in the last year, we have these dates the same. But this year, when our new period starts, we pay once again. But so it means that when we pay once again, it means that created at is the same as it was last year, because like its initial current term start changes because we started our new term. So we paid once again and we started our term.
That would mean that every row of information where current time start is equals to the created at date means that's the first occurrence for that particular business.
Yes. Let's start to build our DBT models. When I was building, the first thing when I started to build, it was thinking about what my data architecture will look like and what layers for my DBT projects I will create. In terms of tools, I just use the Snowflake database where I loaded all the data. And of course, I use DBT Core. I developed all in my VS Code, created all the tables there, and I connected it with some Snowflake. In Snowflake, you can create like a free trial. I think it's already expired, so I won't be able to show it in Snowflake. But yeah, it's possible to create a free trial to load data and just manage it there. In terms of what layers of models I've used, in general, it's quite a common approach to create 3 main layers. They can be called differently. I call it this way. The first layer of my DBT models, it's called staging. Staging is just one-to-one models to the raw data. We just saw the CSV files with some raw data. In staging, I just reference these models with one-to-one relationships. So I have the same fields and the same data there with some small transformations, with some minor transformations. I don't know, renaming the fields or changing the data types of fields if needed, if I want so. On the second layer, I have intermediate layer. In intermediate layer models, I use some more complex transformations, and I created these self-serve tables for the business. My idea was that business can query tables on my intermediate layer and be able to answer the questions that we discussed previously. And the last layer, in my case, we don't have any models there, but in the future, they could use this layer potentially. This layer, Mart Layer, it's like more like a final models with final transformation. And the idea is that it's not maybe for the self-serve, but it's just for most common cases. For example, if you're analyzing sales and you want to create a dashboard for the sales team to track the performance of the sales reps, we can create on the Mart Layer one final sales model. And on top of this one model, I can create like one big table. We are creating a dashboard. It's more like for final products, for final layer, for final models. First layer, as I said, is staging layer. I just created 3 tables based on the raw data. And I did some minor transformation like renaming fields, converting data types, and converting field format. Yeah, I will show you what I mean. In DBT, we use SQL, right, in our models. Just write some SQL queries to have and saved it in my VS Code. I can show it here. This is how the DBT project looks like. I have in C, I have some raw data that I just showed you. And in models, yeah, I have my staging folder with staging models. And this is how the models look like here. As I said, I reference my raw data, raw business table, and made some renaming to have more clear naming for these fields. For example, in business table, we have ID, right? But we have ID as well in other tables. So when we will join, it's easy to to join them incorrectly. So I specifically said that this ID is business ID and this is business create date. So I just added some additional descriptions to the field for others understand it more clearly. And that's it what I did here. I just renamed the fields. Here in subscription items, the same. I reference all the fields from raw subscription items and just renamed ID field to have subscription items ID. And the last one is staging table subscriptions. Here I also renamed some fields. So I referenced raw data and renamed some fields and made some transformations because I have some interesting field formats, and I can show you what I mean. In this table, we have last field called subscription plan, or I think it's more like, it's not subscription plan, I think it's exchange rate. Let me check. No, it's subscription plan.
It's subscription plan.
Yeah, I have a subscription plan. And as you see, it's in very interesting format, more like in the format of a dictionary. I wanted to just work with this format and create two separate fields with the table format. See here, item ID, it's more like subscription plan ID, and we have currency code. It helps us to understand in what currency we have our price. I need to create two from this one field that we have in raw data. I created two different fields, item ID and currency code. And I did it with some special functions. Actually, I just Googled and I asked to Google how I can do this, how I can separate this field in two. And Snowflake, the database that I use, has a special formula for this function. It's called parse JSON. You just use this parse JSON formula. With this formula, I just created two. Instead of one field, I have just two fields. And that's it. And I called all tables that are starting with STG, just a good naming convention, just to understand that these are models from the initial layer. Next thing, so we have all these three. Next layer is intermediate layer. It's my main layer that I was thinking a lot about how to model my data and what tables should I create there and what transformations should I have for business to be able to answer their questions. I think I spend a lot of time on it. There are a lot of options how you can do it, but I decided to do it like this. Because we have this Kimball approach or dimensional modeling approach, how to model data, I use it here. I created dimensional tables with some descriptions, and I created fact tables. Let's start with the dimensional tables. I created two dimensional tables that we already had. So it's just business. This information is absolutely the same as we have in our staging layer. Just information about businesses. And the second one is information about subscription plans. They're absolutely the same as the previous layers. And we will use it to join with the fact tables to get some additional information. For example, if they need some business type or organizational type, they can just join to fact table and get this information. Also, I created one additional table with the dates. Dates table is quite useful and it's just like quite standard. And it just helps to have all the dates with some additional granularity in my database. We have a create date, right? And it's in a date format. But for example, we want to see information by year, or we want to see, was it like a weekend or a weekday? And there are some standard tables with dates that already contain this information. I created just this table. The business can just join this table by date, and we'll be able to analyze the data by weekday or by month, by year without any additional calculations. This format is Ginger format, and I used DBT has a lot of external packages that help develop models, and one of the packages is called DBT date. It just creates a table with this command. You just need to put a start date and end date, and this package automatically creates the table with these dates and with some additional date information. You can just Google it, DBT date, DBT package, and it's an official DBT website, and we can check what information we have, day of the week, months ago. Just nice to have and just useful information here.
In terms of storage, right? I know
Yeah.
creating the dim table for the dates is to ensure like quick data joining and no need to be writing complex transformation to get some certain date fits. But in terms of storage, does the solution that it is providing, does it outweigh the cost? More like look at the pros and cons. Is it better for the analyst to write the transformation for the month or the year function that they want to get, rather than having a whole date with different columns built out?
I mean, like instead of creating this table, we can reduce cost by just writing writing calculations by themselves when we need.
Yes, and that's what I want to understand. So does it make sense for them to write the functions to get the date fit by themselves, or creating a date in terms of costing?
I think right now in modern world it doesn't make sense in this case, because all these cloud databases like Snowflake or BigQuery or Databricks, they're very powerful, and actually the cost is quite small for this type of tables. I think here in this table we have just maybe several thousand rows, and we won't pay much for it. I would still create this table and just join it, and that's it. The cost happens when we have, I don't know, million or billions of rows, and when we start join such big tables together. Only in this case we can think about it, but in this case just we have several thousand rows and it's won't cost much, doesn't make sense to calculate it differently.
Okay.
The most complicated part, it's fact tables. I was thinking a lot how to create it to be able to answer the questions. Let's just review questions once again. And I was thinking how I can answer this question. How many active subscriptions do we have on any historical date? It means that, okay, we have a date and we can just simple query this table and get information about how many customers are active today. And when I checked the subscriptions table, we using just this table, we won't be able to answer this question, or we need to write some complex SQL query, because we have active clients, and I think we have as well here canceled clients. It means that if you want to check how many active clients we had last year, some of the clients already canceled, and we won't see from this table exact information about active. This table shows active clients at this moment, right now. In some cases, it's quite useful, but it doesn't reflect the historical data appropriately. So we need to use this table and transform it in a way that we have the first created the current date, what is the date right now, or all the previous dates, and what the status of the client was at each historical date. For example, what this customer active yesterday, or was it active last year? And if the customer canceled subscription, we want to see at this date field that this customer canceled, and we should see like, okay, active and then canceled, and we want to see it at which date. Okay, let's go. How I did it. I did it using some SQL. First of all, here I just added some, I don't know, date transformations. I just double checked, and all this created at date. I think it's in the format of timestamp in a raw data, but I just transform it into date. Here I just took data from subscriptions and added all these fields from the subscription table. And I added, just for simplicity, I added some information from subscription plans or subscription items. It is only information about revenue. We have the subscription plan, we have billing period, month or year, and we have a unit price. Just took information if it's month or year. If it's year, I just divide it by 12, and I just multiplied unit price by exchange rate. If it's US dollars, we have just one, so we won't see any difference. But for Canadian dollars, we have some exchange rate, and we will get some other data. So this field is just to get the revenue.
What prompted you to come up with the snapshot part was because the current data points does not give us the access to look at historical data, which means the previous years, right?
Yes, like I mean, we have it here. For example, let's for example, we have this client canceled,
Yeah.
and this client canceled on February 29th, and this client started at January 29th and canceled at February 29th. I want to check all active subscribers on February 1st. This client was active on February 1st because it started in January and ended at the end of the month. But when I query this table, I see that it's canceled. I can't say that this client was active. I can say it only by looking at these dates. So when we compare, I built a table in my intermediate layer to show that what specific dates this client was active.
In a situation where the status column is not available, how would you have approached this?
Yeah, could you repeat please? What do you mean?
In a situation where the status column is not available, how would you have approached
what field? What field once again?
Status. Yeah, no, the status column. It's showing cancel the act.
Yeah, status.
Yes.
If it's not available, what?
Yeah, if it's not available, how would you have approached the problem?
We have dates, right? So we have a cancellation at date. We know that at this date, the customer canceled. And if the customer canceled, we have the date. But if the customer is still active, this field is empty. We see, for example, here, this customer is active. We see that we have a date. We just have a blank numbers. Write a simple case statement and say, if this field is blank, it means that this customer is active. If it's not blank and it has some data, it's a canceled client. Yeah.
Okay.
Once again, I just took all the fields from the subscriptions table and I added some fields from subscription items or subscription plan table just to calculate the revenue based on the period, month or year, and based on the unit price and exchange rate. It's just additional just for simplicity information. Yeah, also I have my table, some dates from the table that I for the dates. And then I expanded what I did. Here we have information about subscription ID, subscription business, and date. So I took this table, was the main one, subscription ranges. This is how I called it. And I took most of the fields from here, and the date I took from the calendar days table, from the dates. And here I just, I implemented some logic. For example, for the calendar days, for the dates table, just took date, and the dates should be, I wanted to see only dates only for active period. The logic is, please use a between created date of the subscription, and the last date should be rather cancel date if they can turn and on, or if all these tables, all these fields are blank, just use the current date, and that's it. So, for example, if the customer started on the January 1st and canceled on March 1st, I want to see only for this subscription, only for this period. I don't want to see the dates before because this customer was not with us. And also, I don't want to see the dates after the customer canceled, because the customer already canceled, so we don't want to see. Yeah, and just implemented this status, which is if the date is more or equal cancel date, the customer is canceled. If it's not, it's active. So just additional field to show the status.
So the second status is to get the actual dates that the customer actually canceled, right?
Yes, correct. Yes. And we have some specific date. We have a subscription ID and business ID at this specific date if this customer was active. We have a channel. So from what channel this customer purchased a subscription, and we have a revenue, and we have a status. From this table, we will be able to answer this question. We have a question: how many active subscriptions do we have on a given historical date? The business can just query this final table, and it will show business the amount of active customers at this period. And if the business wants to add some additional information, like a dimension, they can join this business and items subscription plan tables to get some additional information. What other questions do we have? How frequently are premium subscribers churning from the product? Churning, it means that they're canceling the subscription, right? So in this final table, we have also status field where we can see when the customer canceled. The business as well can just query it and find information, how many customers are canceling their subscription day by day. Next one, what portion of revenue is coming from each specific purchase method at the given point of time? At a given point of time, it means every day. In my case, UI calculated revenue, and purchase method is just a channel, right? So we have everything. We can analyze it every day, the revenue from different channels. We can also just visualize the revenue by months broken down by purchase. So it's quite the same. So we can just analyze revenue by channel or by purchase method. This is how I created this table. And for Mart Layer, I haven't created anything because it was not task right now. So I just explained what it could be, what models there could be in the future. One big table just to have answers for specific questions there. In terms of validation, additional task was to provide information how would we validate the data. And one of the possible solutions is to implement data contracts in DBT. Data contracts, they are just like a feature in DBT that checks some fields when the table is created. For example, it checks a data type of a field. And for example, it checks if it's like a primary key or not. We have this business ID, and we know this field is integer, right? Because of how we checked the raw data. If the data will change for some reason, raw data will change, and it won't be integer anymore. We will get an error, and we will get a notification about it, and DBT will understand it and send us notification. And so we'll need to double check what is happening, be able to catch some errors. For the date, we have a data type date, checks if it's date in the date format or not. If it's not, we will get an error. This is simple checks or like data contracts that I created. In terms of tests, I just said that DBT has several types of tests. Some of the built-in tests, which like the 4 main types, which I implemented to check. I haven't implemented more advanced tests because I didn't have enough time for this, but I mentioned that we can create our own custom tests, or we can use some external packages like DBT Expectations. DBT Expectations is quite a popular package with some more complex tests that we can test and that we can create. But in my case, I just use some unique or not null tests that they check. For example, okay, we have a business ID. Business ID in our table is unique field. So we can't have businesses with the same unique ID. And this field is very important for us because we can join to the fact table. So it means that we should have all values in this field. That's why I implemented not null tests. When we create our DBT models, if these conditions are not met, we will get an error. And here some examples of the errors or failures. I just ran this test and I got some, for instance, this test is like unique test and it failed. It means that we have some duplicates there and we need to check the state. Or this, yeah, and here's also unique. This test just help us to catch errors and to fix it later. Monitoring and alerts, I haven't just like created anything, but I just said that we can validate the outputs by implementing some notifications in Slack or alerts. So when we get failures of our test or data contracts, we can create some settings to get notifications in Slack or some other corporate messengers that we use. And the additional question was also about how we will teach our product team to use these tables that we created. First of all, even before the creation of these DBT models, actually we need to talk to business and to gather their requirements. We should understand their problems right now, and we want to understand their real needs, what they really need and what problems they need to solve. Then we can provide, after we create all these tables, we can provide trainings for them, live sessions, where we can explain what tables do we have, what information in each table we have, how we can join them, and maybe have some like workshop where I can query these tables and I can give them examples of some tasks, and they should try to build these tasks themselves, and they probably will have some questions that I can answer. Also, nice to have a documentation with the field descriptions or just in general about some business description or how to use these tables. Support, I can create a Slack channel dedicated to analytics where some business stakeholders can ask any questions. Also, I can host office hours. Office hours is just a meeting, maybe once a week or maybe twice a week or once in 2 weeks for 1 hour, for example, where I can say that, okay, all of you who are using the dashboards and you have any questions about analytics and dashboards, you can come to this meeting. It's optional for everyone, but you can come once a week or once in 2 weeks to ask me any questions about dashboards or analytics. And measure of success is quite important. When we build some solutions, we want to be confident that business users, they're using what we built. They're using our dashboard, they're using our models. It's very frustrating where we spend a lot of time on creating some dashboards or models and nobody uses it. So it's very frustrating, disappointing, at least for me. We need to have some success metrics. It means that, for example, I am tracking the number of active users of the dashboard on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. I can check, okay, in this department, in the product team, we have 10 people. How many of them are using my dashboard on a daily basis? And how many of them they're using on a weekly basis? If there are not so much people that are using on a regular basis, maybe I can go to them and ask why you don't use it. What is what's the issue? I'm trying to understand why they don't use it and maybe fix some things that are not maybe convenient to them. So this is all about the task number 1 that I completed. Yeah, do you have any questions?
No, I think that's pretty much clear and straightforward from beginning to the end. One thing that was, I know that the task probably did not basically ask for that. One thing I was looking forward to would be that we try to write some queries and to see maybe that would happen in the BI in your data warehouse session, that is in Snowflake, to see the model that we've built, we can actually answer one of these business questions that we set out to solve. Yeah, I think that's the only thing I was hoping to see. But all in all, this is solid and pretty straightforward.
Thank you.